I'm Anthony Elmore, President and founder of the proud Black Buddhist World Association. We are not only the Black Buddhist voice in America, we are the Black Buddhist voice in the world. And today we bring you another exciting Black Buddhist lecture. My lecture today is Buddhism and Aretha Franklin, 2018. One of the greatest cultural American musical icons passed away, the Queen of Soul, Aretha Franklin. And we, in this lecture, will tell you the story or introduce the concept of Buddhism and Aretha Franklin. Now, this is what we can say, and this is what we're proud of. At Buckingham Palace, the Buckingham Guards played the song Respect in honor of Aretha Franklin, who actually sang for Queen Elizabeth. She not only sang for Queen Elizabeth, she sang for Pope Francis, and she sang all over the world, one of America's greatest iconic heroes. Now, Aretha Franklin did not let white people control her thoughts or her thinking. And even at her funeral, she sent a message by having the Nation of Islam leader, the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan, to be a part, at least, of the great people that was there, the great leaders. For example, there was Al Sharpton, and there was Jesse Jackson, and there was President Bill Clinton, and among them was Minister Louis Farrakhan. In fact, during the Civil Rights Movement, Aretha Franklin marched and traveled with Dr. Martin Luther King. She sung at Dr. King's funeral. Even when Angela Davis got locked up during the early days of the Black Revolutionary Movement, it was Aretha Franklin who agreed to pay for her bond so she can get out. In fact, how Minister Louis Farrakhan got to be friends with Aretha Franklin. In New York, when the Nation of Islam was unfairly challenged or abused by the police, it was Aretha Franklin that came to the Nation of Islam aid, and she asked Minister Louis Farrakhan, she said, has Jesse Jackson been here? He says, no. He said, he'll be here in 2 hours. So that was the kind of strength and behind the scenes power that Aretha Franklin had, and that she gave her money, her time, and her energy into the movement of the Black Power movement that fought for racial dignity, to fight for equality, and to fight against injustice. Now, while Aretha Franklin is known as the Queen of Soul, the Lotus Sutra explains that Aretha Franklin became the Queen of Soul via an explanation we call Yo-Ho Renge Kyo. That is the title of Lotus Sutra, or the 3,000 realms in a momentary state of existence. You see, in a specific sense, see, the past, the present, and the future exist in a momentary state of existence. See, the Lotus Sutra explains what we are today is the result of something we did in the past. And what we are going to be in the future is the result of what we do today. You see, the Lotus Sutra explains that all phenomena is moving and not static, and that all phenomena is going through phases of birth, growth, maturity, and death. In fact, at this time, Aretha's life has moved from the cycle of she was born, she grew, she matured, and she died. This is the cyclic life, or how Buddhism explains life. And explain how Aretha Franklin got her groove among some southern white boys down in Alabama. You see, There was a white man by the name of Jerry Wexler. Now, he was a partner in Atlantic Records. Jerry Wexler was a Jewish writer who went to one of them big Ivy League schools, and he was actually a writer for Billboard magazine. See, in 1949, Jerry Wexler did something. He changed the name of the image of black music, or how it's received. See, in 1949, on the Billboard charts, black music was called race music. And it was the Jewish man, Jerry Wexler, who coined the title rhythm and blues. You see, this is how rhythm and blues came about, because instead of calling it race music, he changed it to a more friendly term and called it rhythm and blues. Now, about the same time as they changed it from rhythm and blues, you see, all of the white kids was into this black music. There was a white man out of Ohio. Now,
hello, everybody.
This white man out of Ohio came up with the term rock and roll. You see, the term rock and roll was a friendly term they used to get white kids to accept black music, and they called it rock and roll. There was a white man by the name of Alan Freed. Alan Freed would have a show called the Moondog Show. I think it was in Columbus, Ohio, and every night he would play this black music after the white music was played, and the white kids would listen to this music, and they would go to this guy's radio record shop and buy these black records because the white kids was into this black music. See, all of America's original music was created by black people. All of the popular music. See, the first original music in America was the Negro spirituals. And after that, there was blues, jazz, soul, and rock and roll. All of this come from black people. All the popular dance and all of America's popular forms of music and dance were created by black people. Now, in Muscle Shoals, Alabama, there was a studio called Fame Recording Studios, and Fame Recording Studios was run by a white man by the name of Rick Hall, who's a musician, who came up very poor. His mama went to Memphis, and she's a prostitute, and he had a lot of hard times, and he was like the poor white man, but he understood the black music, and he could relate to it culturally, and he had developed a recording studio in Muscle Shoals, Alabama called Fame. Now, where in this recording studio, see, Jerry Wexler, who was a partner in Atlantic Records, brought Aretha Franklin right down in the dirty South, and they recorded at this Fame studio with Rick Hall as the producer. Now, whether one believes in the Lotus Sutra, Buddhist teachings or not, the law of cause and effect in every instance in relationship to Aretha Franklin was at work. You see, before 1967, there never existed the entity known as Aretha Franklin, the Queen of Soul, because she had not gotten her groove, or the entity or the power or the influence and all the relationships that come together had not manifested. You see, the Lotus Sutra of the Buddhist teachings explains how external relationships can cause an inherent cause to manifest. Let me explain it this way. An oak seed possessed the potential of a giant oak tree. When you combine an inherent cause with the relationship, you get a manifest effect. If the oak tree is planted at the right time, has the proper elements, such as soil, water, sunlight, and proper conditions, because of the inherent because of the oak tree, it can grow to a great oak tree. Now, see, Aretha Franklin, she was not only a child prodigy. Before 1967, there never existed an entity known as Aretha Franklin, the Queen of Soul. While Aretha Franklin existed, the entity of Aretha Franklin of the Queen of Soul had not emerged or manifest. It is the Lotus Sutra of the Buddhist teaching that explains how an external relationship can produce an internal relationship, and the external relationship comes together, produced a manifest effect. You see, Aretha Franklin was not only a child prodigy. Aretha Franklin was born right here in Memphis, Tennessee, on March the 25th, 1942, to Clarence Levon, which his name was C.L. Franklin, and her mother was Barbara Nee Siggers. She was delivered right at 406 Lucy Avenue in Memphis. Her father was a Baptist minister and a circuit preacher, and her mother was an accomplished piano player and a vocalist. In regards to black history, culture, influence in America, Aretha Franklin, in regards to black culture, was royalty. She was exposed to the very best and accomplished in black gospel music. Mahalia Jackson, the famous gospel singer Mahalia Jackson, was her auntie. You had singer Sam Cooke and the Clark sisters, and everyone who was who's who in the black music world would come to the Franklin's house, was associated. Even Dr. Martin Luther King was friends with Reverend C.L. Franklin, and when Aretha Franklin was a kid, a young girl, she traveled with Dr. Martin Luther King. Now, the birth of the Queen of Soul took flight, and it took birth. See, the relationship and influence manifests the inherent cause of the Queen of Soul. The birth took place not among black people, as one would expect. The Queen of Soul entity of Aretha Franklin manifested in an unlikely place among white musicians in the white country town of Muscle Shoals, Alabama. Now, when Aretha Franklin, see, it was Jerry Wessler who believed in the greatness of Aretha Franklin, and he brought Aretha Franklin down to the famed studio, who had helped singers like Ray Charles and other black singers, and Clarence Carter and other people had made great hits in Muscle Shoals, Alabama. So he brought Aretha Franklin there to Hall's famed studio. It is the Lotus Sutra that reads, quote, "Only Buddhas know the true entity of all phenomena." See, how in the hell could the Queen of Soul find her groove with some white boys in an unlikely place called Muscle Shoals, Alabama? You see, Buddhism explains the 10 acts. The 10 acts, that is an appearance, a nature, an entity, a power, an influence, an inherent cause. You got a relationship, a latent effect, a manifest effect, and a consistency from beginning to end. See, the 10 aspects explain it. You see, and what changed America was an inanimate object called the radio. You see, back in the early 1900s, the Klan down in the South got into power, and the Klan got into power, and they created havoc all over the South, and they stressed segregation. They would kill you because it was more hate and more pain in the South because the Klan had arisen to power. But what happened at the same time of the Klan, a new entity was born in America, and it was an inanimate object called a radio. You see, all of the 3,000 worlds exist in animate objects, like a physical object, and it also exists in a spiritual way, but it can be in a living entity or an inanimate object. It was the radio. You see, Even though the whites fought very hard to segregate white people away from black people, but it was that radio that by 1922, that radio was in homes all over America, and the white races could not segregate white kids from listening to black music. It was the radio, whereas white kids could listen to the radio and develop an affinity or a love for black music. This is why in 1946, when Big Arthur Kruger had his song called That's Alright, there was a young Elvis Presley in Tupelo, Mississippi, who could listen to him on the radio at 11 years old. And he grew up listening to this black music. It was white kids all over America who was inspired.
Look over there. And she's got this aura around her, pretty thick. I mean, the girl was special. I remember watching the guys, being good Southern boys, they'd carry on with anything except looking or dealing with her. So she walked right over to the piano. She sat there a moment, and then she just hit this unknown chord, I would say. Didn't anybody have to say we're about to cut?
We did what we called head sessions at that time, and there was no real music written for it. The musicians would just listen to what it was I was doing, and then they would decide what they were going to do around that.
I think we heard a little demo of this song, Never Loved a Man the Way I Love You.
To me, it sounded pretty much like junk. I'm thinking, that's a song they're going to cut? There was discussions, Jerry Wexler and Rick.
There was a little confusion and there was a little turmoil. Everybody was a little uptight.
We can't find a groove, a beat, a place to start.
They were just had all these gears working, but finally it just came to a and suddenly it was really quiet. They had a song, they had an artist, but nobody knew what to do. Not even all these geniuses. But out of that quietness came Spooner with, and I said, hey, Spooner's got it. That's it. Aretha jumped right on it.
You're no good, heartbreaker. You're a liar and you're a cheat.
It was cut within 15 to 20 minutes. You didn't have to ask, what do you think? Everybody knew it was a hit.
I think everything came together for Aretha in Muscle Shoals.
They got Aretha to record a much more funky kind of style in Muscle Shoals. It was really the essence of her.
'Cause I ain't never loved a man the way that I love you.
Coming to Muscle Shoals was the turning point. That's where I recorded I Never Loved a Man, which became my first million-selling record. So absolutely, it was a milestone and the turning point in my career.
We cut I Never Loved a Man, which people to this day still regard as being maybe her most soulful and really funkiest record.
That's one of those songs, the ones that give you the chills, the ones that give you the goosebumps, the ones that you like, I wish I sang a record like that.
The Go Show, or the writers of Nichiren Shonin called the sacred teachings of the Buddha reads, quote, with regard to the word kyo, profound meaning says, quote, the voice carries out the work of the Buddha, and it is called kyo or sutra. Because Aretha Franklin used her voice for good, She carried out the work of the Buddha. This is Kyo or Sutra. See, let me especially explain this to Black Buddhists who neglect to honor Aretha Franklin. See, the fact that Aretha Franklin was the Queen of Soul allowed her to carry out the work of the Buddha. Racist whites, white supremacy, and the evil human spirit allowed bad causes and hurt to emerge. Black culture, its music and its people were hated and considered despicable. It was the soul that not only touched the hearts of millions of people worldwide, Aretha Franklin helped to set the foundation of what we call America. Imagine white people calling black music jungle nigger music to the music of Aretha Franklin being celebrated at Carnegie Hall on March 6, 2017. Aretha Franklin received numerous honors throughout her career, including the 1987 induction into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame as the first female performer inducted, the National Medal of Arts, the Presidential Medal of Freedom. She was inducted into the United Kingdom Music Hall of Fame in 2005, to the Gospel Music Hall of Fame in 2012. Franklin is listed in 2 all-time lists by Rolling Stone magazine, including the 100 greatest artists of all time and the 100 greatest singers of all time. In 2008, she was ranked by Rolling Stone as the #1 greatest singer of all time. This is what we must understand. America's first original music was Negro spirituals, Africans who came to Americans as slaves. They took away the language, they took away the history, they took away the culture, and people had to dig down within themselves to find a culture, to find a history. Now they were allowed to sing religious songs, and out of their heart came soul, came the music of America's first original music. This first original music that later became soul music went all around the world. The title of the Lotus Sutra is Myoho Renge Kyo. Nichiren add the Black Pali word Namu. Namu means to awaken. We awaken to the correct law of cause and effect teachings, or Kyo, which means to overcome delusion. Aretha Franklin is Myoho Renge Kyo. Myoho Renge Kyo is Aretha Franklin, or African American black people, created all of the popular music, song, and dance in America. This is what makes America great. And this is why America is great. And America is great because we had an Aretha Franklin and we had soul. But anyway, let's bring this lecture to a conclusion. The way whites and Asians teach Buddhism, they'll go against the practice of what the Buddha taught. We, at the proud Black Buddhist World Association, teach a Buddhism inclusive of our black history, culture, and language. Let's bring a conclusion to this lecture. This is Anthony Elmore. I'm at the birth home of Aretha Franklin at 406 Lucy Street in Memphis. And what we can say is that homegirl, Aretha Franklin, did a great job. Anyway, this is Anthony Elmore bringing to you our lecture, Buddhism and Aretha Franklin. Thank you very much.